Thank you for joining us. We have an amazing, truly amazing guest today, Brian Costello, uh, writer of an amazing book that I read and I absolutely loved, and it's at the very top of my list. I mean, I'm not lying here, brother. This is really an amazing work you did, and we'll get to the book and all
Yeah,
of
I'm glad
that.
you got a chance to read it. Very cool.
Yeah, and I know you said, hey, it's a long book, it's almost 600 pages, and just read the chapter that has to do with plant medicine. But curiosity in me got got the best, so I had to
Good.
start it from the beginning. And brother, I couldn't put it down. I was knocking out like 80, 90 pages at a time.
Nice.
Which is not typical for me. Usually I'm like 60 and I'm done for the day.
Yeah.
But it was very, very good. And man, let's see, because I have so many questions and things, but let's just start really quickly with uh, I know that you have some experience with plant medicine. I also know that you started running by running gyms, right? You were kind of fitness thing. And somehow that you took this turn into plant medicine and you started to kind of, so I'd love for you to take us from this regular life of running a business and running your thing and just living life, and I know you have a family and kiddos and all that. How does a normal man like that end up in this other world that you're in now?
Yeah. Great question, and it's a perfect place to start. Yeah, I mean, so I opened a gym right out of college. As soon as I graduated college, I opened a CrossFit affiliate. And I'm sure you've heard of CrossFit, and most of our listeners
Yeah,
have
absolutely.
heard of it. At the time, no one had really heard of it. It was very early. It was about 2000. I started in about 2007, and I opened my gym right at the end of 2009 as it was changing to 2010. And yeah, I was always just in the mindset of trying to better myself. I came from an athletic background, just pushing and finding new ways to improve and tricks and tips and anything to be better, to perform better. At least that was, for most of my life, it was about performance. Improvement and performance were like kind of one and the same to me. And throughout my 20s, I opened this gym. I helped a lot of other people step into that same lifestyle of pushing themselves and feeling like an athlete, even if they weren't specifically tied to a sport, or maybe they were a little older, but just being in a lifestyle that challenged themselves and challenged their bodies, and looked for that sort of those opportunities for growth and things like that. And I was also competing in CrossFit. I was competing in another event. I was kind of in some ways competing at business, and I was really just wanted to have the best reputation, the best business, and all these things. I was pushing myself a lot, and I was really like bigger, faster, stronger when it came to my physical self. It was more and more and more, better, better, better when it came to the business and side of things. It was really like an all gas, no brakes sort of scenario. And it was going pretty well, though, like things, I was getting the results I was aiming for, both physically, from a performance standpoint, from a business standpoint. All the things looked good. If you asked me, I would have said things are great. I mean, all the things I care about are improving. All of my numbers, all of my times, all of my financials, analytics, all these things. So therefore, I'm good. I'm happy. This is what I'm trying to do. But slowly but surely, I pushed too far, and the wheels just started to come off. Um, I didn't know how to rest. I didn't know how to manage relationships. I didn't know how to have boundaries. I had about 200 to 250 members of my gym. And for those that don't know, CrossFit is a very community-based gym, very relationship-based. So I spent long hours coaching classes, but also just talking with people, hanging out, getting to know them, digging in, asking them questions about their life and their goals and their things. and in most cases, just being a good person, like just cordial and friendly, and while people were in my gym. But I didn't know how to draw boundaries, and I didn't know how to protect my time and protect my own energy. So over time, I had this business for about 7 years, and it really, really wore me down. And it got to the point where I started falling apart physically, but also emotionally, stress wise, adrenal wise, and then a lot of my relationships started to be really worn. A couple of very close friends of mine that were friends first, turned business, and then kind of had some falling outs that were really hard on me. Um, Ultimately, my marriage ended up going through a very, very difficult period of time as well. And like I said, my body was falling apart, injury on top of injury. And all of a sudden, I'm like, everything I had worked so hard for to earn and was falling apart around me, kind of slipping through my fingers and crumbling. And I went through a couple of hard years with the business, and I decided to step away. I handed it off to one of my employees. I mean, he bought it from me, but it was kind of a I got to get out sort of thing.
Yeah.
And this was actually almost 10 years ago this week, 10 years ago this week that happened. And I decided that I was going to really focus on myself, rebuilding myself and getting my health back, building my marriage back, all of these things that had crumbled. Um, I went through the low point continued. It was a pretty dark period of time for me because now I had just spent my entire 20s up, everything looking good. I'm going to be set. I'm going to have a business and savings and employees and all these things for good. Like I'm just going to be good from here. And now I'm in my early 30s. I had just turned 30, and it was gone. I was back to square one. Um, and like just to say, like when I was always pushing harder, knowing that I was going to be able to step back soon. Right? That's kind of like this common story with entrepreneurs. Oh, as soon as I hit this point, as soon as this, I'll be able to step back and I'll be on autopilot.
Kind of like going into the mafia. You know what I mean? Once you're in,
Yes,
you don't get out.
you don't get it exactly. So I just was willing to sacrifice myself, thinking it was short term and for a long term payoff. And then now, next thing you know, all the sacrificing was wore me down, and I had nothing to show for it. So I went through a really dark time, and my wife and I barely made it through that period of time in our marriage. And like I said, I lost some really close friends along the way, and I went from having this big community of all these people that like I had these relationships with, and spending most of my day interacting with people. I kind of then went like pretty much went into solitude for a while, just to try to find myself and rebuild and start over. I did. I luckily there was low points there, but ultimately I was able to decide that I can turn this around and I can come out of this better. Um, and once I started getting on that track, I decided the first step that was the first thing I did was a very long fast. I did a very long fast, 30 days with my wife, and that just completely reshaped my vision of the world and everything I thought I knew about really the nature of reality and the body and consciousness and all these things.
Mm-hmm.
And it was still I was still pretty down at this point because now after the fast, I mean, I was down to skin and bones. Financially, I was in a really bad place. I kind of, all of my things I identified myself by were gone. And I said, okay, it's time to rebuild. And I allowed myself to be open and be guided. And ultimately, the fast led to some other things, more and more holistic, more and more natural, more and more ancient ways of thinking and being and living. And ultimately, I started hearing about these medicines, and at first I was hearing. It seemed like it was just coming up on podcasts all the time. And it was like even unexpected things where I wasn't even meaning to listen to podcasts about medicine. I was doing some of that as well, but I was just anyone I was finding who was sort of successful and doing the same thing, looking at life the same way I was, of how do I continue to better myself? How do I rebuild? How do I heal? People with that mindset seem to all be going this direction and this route. And I sort of told I was interested in it, but I was always so scared. I was like, no way, I could never, that it was just it was just not my style of forfeiting and relinquishing control of my consciousness like that. But I kind of made a promise to myself that, like, if I was ever invited directly to go to a ceremony or had an opportunity come up, if that ever happened, I would say yes. That was like my promise to myself, thinking it was probably never going to happen, or at least not for a long time. And sure enough, I started thinking about, I was actually interested in microdosing first. And I was looking into it for my brother who has special needs, and was kind of doing some research about it. And I had a friend who introduced me to somebody who was like, oh, this is your guy to talk to. Anything related to psilocybin, talk to him. So I reached out to him regarding microdosing and my brother and this and that. Here's the situation. And he wrote back a very, like, a one sentence email. It said, we're having a ceremony on November 2nd. Would you like to join us? I was like, my heart stopped. I was like, wait, what? That's not what I asked for.
That's an invitation.
Yeah. But there you go. Exactly. That was the invitation. I freaked out a little bit at first. I was like, no. But then I knew, I was like, this is it. I have to do it. And I trusted that it was supposed to be that way. So that was in end of 2019. So about going on 7 years ago was my
So
first.
that's like right before the pandemic hit.
Yes, right before the pandemic hit. Yes.
Mm. Okay.
Yeah, so I'll pause there. That kind of gives you the lead up.
Yeah. No, that's I hear you. I'm wondering in looking back at the way you were living and how you were not taking care of yourself and all of these relationships that ended up falling apart. I wonder, did you find the through line to that, the reason why that was happening? And did the plants help you in the discovery of that?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, it wasn't really like one thing, but if I had to like whittle it down to one thing, it was me ignoring the signs and signals from my body and my intuition, continuing to just turn away from the hard conversations, turn away from the aches and pains, pushing through, or just got to keep going, got to keep going, got to keep going. That was just the mentality that I had growing up as an athlete, as a wrestler, being accustomed to sports that require the no pain, no gain mentality. That was kind of how I was living. And listening to your body or taking rest, these are weakness. These are things that in that world, these are like weaknesses, right? So I had no communication with my body. I had no intuitive connection. I shouldn't say none, but I didn't really know how to recognize the deeper voice when it was showing me or telling me or whispering or talking or screaming. I didn't listen until it was screaming so loud that it was too late. And when the fast specifically was the first time I really like learned how to hear my intuition. All of a sudden I was like, whoa, this is what intuition even sounds like. And it made me realize that I had honored my intuition at other times. Like even doing the fast was kind of an intuitive, I don't know, it just feels right. Let's do it. But then once that opened up, I started realizing that communication is online 24/7. I'm able to stop and pause and tap into my intuition and what I'm feeling and make sense of my emotions and my energy. I can do that at any time, any place, right? So that changed everything for me. And I was able to look back and see all these conversations that I wasn't having. It was That was the big one. I didn't want to have any hard conversations. Just wanted to look away from it, assume it was just going to go away, and then I would just be in these stress loops, repeating stories in my mind, feeling so stressed out, but doing anything but addressing it head on. And yeah, so that was kind of the common thread. And then it like swung so hard, the pendulum swung so hard the other direction when I started to actually understand intuition.
Absolutely. And no, without a doubt. And that's one of those things that, I've had many conversations with how much we, in the Western world, worship the mind, and it's all about the mind. And we're never even taught that we have an intuition. There's a certain thing we've all heard about women's intuition, right? But it's never been spoken about as something true as the mind creating thoughts, And no, I absolutely love that. There's a great study from the Heart Math Institute where they show definitively that the heart sends more messages to the brain than the brain does to the heart.
Hmm. Interesting.
And I think it's actually in line with how it's supposed to be. It's our minds are supposed to be helpers to the heart to allow us to figure out ways to bring our heart's desires into fruition.
Without a doubt.
Problem is we've forgotten about the heart, and so the poor mind is just trying to make it all work, and it's not designed to make things work. It's designed to figure out, to help us in this landscape. At one point in humanity, we saw the mind as a sense, the way we see eyesight or auditory ability. So it's just really one way to experience the world,
Mm-hmm.
but it's become king, right? And so I love that you started to figure this out, because it's an important thing. I mean, that's the key to it. Living from the heart, like it can be distilled to just that. Like if you can just do that one thing, that will solve so many problems.
Exactly. Without a doubt. Getting out of my head and into my heart was, yeah, I guess that's kind of what you call it, a thread line, a common thread line of switching to that intuitive state out of here into here, from the head to the heart, was like kind of the summary of that next chapter of my life, really my 30s. My 20s were hard driving, push to the limits, kind of ignore the mind, ignore everything and just go. And then the 30s was like, okay, now I'm becoming more heart centered and bringing myself back into alignment. And it's quite the journey. It's quite the difference. It's not something that's you just flip a switch and all of a sudden now you can do it when you've only lived one way your whole life.
Mm-hmm.
Tuning in to this new voice, that it's like learning a new language. It's like it whispers very softly, and the hints are very subtle and indirect sometimes.
Yeah, and it's one of those things that you cannot be taught. It can only be learned, because
Exactly.
it has to be experienced.
Exactly.
Right? Like you have to experience what an open heart is, because the mind cannot grasp it, especially if it's never been able to describe it, right? I mean, all it would do would be to describe what is, but what is so much more than the description, right?
Right.
It's just being distilled.
Right.
Yeah, that's beautiful. Did you? I know that in the book, the sacred ceremony is with mushrooms.
Yes.
Is that your typical medicine that you've gone to, or?
Mostly, yes. Yes, that's the one I've worked with the most, and it's a little bit more available for me, just in my circles and the communities that I've become involved with. Yeah, that's kind of I would say the main reason. But the ceremonies, I've been very fortunate and blessed to work with some teachers who are phenomenal in many, many ways, and conduct a ceremony and hold a space that's very sacred and very traditional and shamanic, as opposed to, I mean, psilocybin has its ranges of use, right? Some people take it at concerts. Some people will take it. Actually, I usually break it into three categories. There's recreational use, although I don't use recreationally. I don't recommend people use recreationally. To me, there isn't really a recreational use of these medicines, but I know people do. Um, there's intentional, and then there's ceremonial. That's just my like three loose.
That's how you break it down. Yeah.
That's how I break it down, because just recreational and ceremonial, I think there's a middle ground that a lot of people, they'll go on hikes, or they'll use it with intention, with curated playlists, or with a certain group of friends, or set and setting.
To write something or to work on a
Yes.
piece of music,
Yes,
those
exactly.
kinds of things.
So this is very intentional, but to me, ceremonial is a even bigger step deeper, right? Where you're
Absolutely.
in your space, you're with
Yeah.
facilitators. The sound specifically is very intentional. Different instruments and songs and things that are meant to help you use the medicines to go even deeper and deeper and really move the energies and heal what needs to be healed.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I love the ceremony, Sandra's ceremony,
Mm.
um, as you described it, and because it's so similar to a couple of ceremonies that I've had with ayahuasca,
Mm-hmm.
and and one of those things where it's taken me not only to realize my own blocked uh, emotions or anything suppressed in relation to, like, say, my father and my mother, but then to also have the experience of what they're going through
Yes.
and the things that they're dealing with
Mm-hmm.
at the same time that they're dealing with me. And it just changes everything.
Absolutely.
Like, it's like, oh my God, I was like so focused on like my own hurts, my own pains, that I couldn't see that other people have their own as well.
Exactly. Right.
And it sounds kind of dumb, but that it is true. Like it's like, and once I figured that out, it just changed everything. And I finally understood, what forgiveness is about.
Mm-hmm.
It's not about the other person. It's the way that I can cleanse myself of these energies.
Mm-hmm.
And
Absolutely.
it's like, and that's what I always, tell people, it's like, forgiveness is super important. And you have to understand that you might feel like if you forgive somebody, you're giving away your power. The truth is, if you don't forgive them, you're giving away your power,
Yes. Right.
because
Yeah.
you're causing yourself harm.
Yes. But in most cases, people, and this was me too at first, forgiveness felt like weakness. It felt like I'm letting them off the hook, or I'm letting them get away with it, or I'm telling
Exactly.
them it's okay what you did. And forgiveness is not weakness at all. Forgiveness is actually where you find your power and your strength, when you're able to do that.
Absolutely. Yeah. And it was actually through an ayahuasca ceremony that I finally really understood the turn the other cheek lesson
Mm,
from the master, because I kind of always had thought about it as something, like you said, coming from a position of weakness. But to really understand that it's actually a position of strength,
yes.
to not take on negative energy that's being shot at you, and to be able to let it pass through you
Right.
instead of
Exactly.
it landing in you.
Exactly.
Like, that's powerful.
It's very powerful, and it's very difficult. It's very difficult, right? Like, we have trouble,
Yes,
but that's the
absolutely.
work. That's the path. And that's
That
the
is exactly it. Yeah,
yeah.
absolutely.
Yeah, I was
Um,
gonna. Oh, sorry. I was gonna say one quick thing
yeah,
on. I think, like you mentioned, the medicines have that one thing you mentioned about helping us see other people, specifically in a lot of cases our parents, right? Helping us see them and feel what they either are feeling or were feeling at other times in their life. Completely, just like you can have those instant shifts, instant changes. I was in a Wachuma ceremony once with it was male and female, but at one point we actually broke into two groups because it's a little bit easier to navigate. It was towards the end; we could sit and talk a little bit, and the men sat around the fire, and we had a little bit of a sharing circle, and the theme just Officially, the theme came up to be just a lot of, talking about what it mean men and like kind of their relationships with their fathers. And there were some people in the group who had some really tough stuff happen when they were younger, and their relationships and the things they went through were like stuff so blessed to never have had experienced. Um, and it was really hard. It was really emotional. A couple of big, strong guys who've been kind of calloused to these emotions their whole life were cracking open and in a good kind of way. And one thing that I just shared towards the end was a reminder to the group that if all of our fathers and grandfathers or whoever these other, that people that had come up that day in the sharing, if they were all sitting here, they'd all have their own story as well. That's probably equally as hard, if not harder, from above them and above them. And that line would go. Everyone has their own unique story and journey. And sometimes it's hard to remember that they've likely experienced, likely what they're reflecting onto us, likely what's being put onto us is a reflection of what they've experienced in their own life as well, even if they've never talked. And to be able to see the medicines just help us see that and feel that and put us in those positions. And it could just take a matter of a few seconds, and your whole perspective can shift.
Absolutely. And that's when your life can truly transform.
Yep,
I mean,
exactly.
I remember my first journey to Peru was in 2013, and that was not my first ceremonial use of plant medicine, because almost a year before, I had done psilocybin mushrooms, but I did them in a shamanic ceremonial setting in Huautla de Jimenez in Oaxaca.
Mm.
And my shaman, this beautiful man named Omar, he was the son of Julieta Casimiro, who happened to be Maria Sabina's like main assistant,
Yep.
apprentice. And man, it was an amazing ceremony, where for the first time I really start to see things about myself that I hadn't seen before, you know. So it was a real eye opener. But I remember the next day, and I talk about this in the movie as well, is that, the next day the shaman says to me, "Hey, now that you've met the children, you got to meet the mother." I said, "Who's the mother?" And he said, "Ayahuasca." So he told me, he's like, the way she works is she calls you, just the way she called you. Like the story you were relating earlier, man, that's exactly how it happened for me, because all of a sudden, and I've never heard of ayahuasca. Never heard anybody in my circles talk about ayahuasca. I've never seen it online. I've never seen it on television. But then one week, like about 10 months after that message from the mushroom shaman, it like in one week I heard ayahuasca like 7 or 8 times in different places. Like I heard people talking about it in the cafe and hearing it on television, and then I'd see something about it online. And then what finally did it is my good friend Bonnie, who ended up being my co-director, Bonnie Mangoni. He had been gone for a couple of months in South America, and I hadn't seen him. So when he got back, he called me, and I'm like, "Hey, bro, let's get some coffee, man. I want to catch up with you." And this is right at the end of this week where I've heard nothing ayahuasca in different places, and I'm starting to wonder, oh, is something calling me here? Is this the thing that the man was talking about? I sit down with Bani, and he's glowing. Like he's got this glow about him that's just you can see it, you can feel it. So I'm like, bro, man, you look great, you feel like strong. What's up? And then he goes, I did ayahuasca, and I'm like, tell me all about it, brother. And I sat there and I heard his entire journey. I don't know, we must have been there an hour and a half, 2 hours, and telling me about his ceremonies. And he's an amazing artist. So he has that, if you ask me to describe my ayahuasca ceremonies, I can only give you like big events. He can remember the actual textures of the things that he was
Right.
seeing
Okay.
and all of
Okay.
that. So that he's the one who told me about Niwa Rao, the ayahuasca center that I ended up going to. And that night when I got back to my place from meeting him, I booked my stay for a couple of months down the road and during the summer, which is when I ended up going. And it was an amazing thing because it's completely just upended my life in every single way. And in a great way, I stopped drinking altogether. I stopped smoking cigarettes. I stopped smoking marijuana, just like that. And I couldn't believe it. I mean, these weren't even really my intentions. I didn't think I was a drunk. Now that now that I look back, I realize I was an alcoholic.
Yeah.
Let's be real. If you're drinking every day, even if it's just 2 to 3 beers after work, and then twice that on the weekend,
Mm-hmm.
you're an alcoholic.
Mm-hmm.
And
Right.
that was me. Um, so, all right. So then you have this. You start working with the plant medicines, and so then how did you start going into uh, the storytelling world? How did you get to the your book?
Yeah. So the book. So through my 30s, like I said, I'm starting to tap into my intuition, and that requires a lot of trust and faith, like I was saying, of just getting signals and getting signs and just following them, despite not being able to logically explain what they mean and why I'm doing the things I'm doing. And it was it was a hard. It's been. I just turned 40, but my 30s were quite a challenging decade as well, in different ways. But I'm on this new journey now, and at this time, and I was learning all about, like I said, just this new way of being, of intuitive led living, and it starts leading me to all different things between medicines and fasting and sun gazing and breath work and all the books and podcasts, and it's just leading me on and on. And all I'm really doing is like, I'm just saying yes to everything. I'm following it wherever it guides me. So I'm collecting, in some ways, I'd say collecting lots and lots of wisdom. I'm learning so much and so many new things in new ways. But I didn't really know what to do with it all. I didn't really have a place to put it or to share it. And my instinct is to share and teach. That's what I've kind of always done. Even when I had my gym, it was a very successful period of time, but more so because of my coaching than like the gym itself. I naturally find myself being able to share from my own experiences really well, and also just help people simplify really complex topics into um, digestible nuggets that they can apply to their life. So now, after almost a decade of just like, it seems like stockpiling wisdom, not that I know everything, obviously, like, I'm not saying that, but like, you start to just feel like you have a lot to share. Well, I started to feel like I had a lot to share and no place to really put it. And I did first start a new coaching program, like a holistic lifestyle coaching program. And I had a certification, and I certified coaches from all over the world. And something I did for a few years, that was my first attempt to take all of these things and put them into something that I could offer the world. And it was actually quite successful, and it was enjoyable, and it hit the mark in most ways. But I was still trying to kind of take all of these concepts and put them into fitness a little bit, into like a fitness style coaching, and it just was too limiting. It was too limiting. I wanted to expand on these things. I wanted to go deeper and wider and really offer people things that, hey, maybe I can't prove that this is necessarily the thing you need exactly, but I want to just introduce you to the idea for you to explore yourself. Um, and then I started getting this idea. I can't really explain why. Well, I always thought I'd write a book. I had this idea in my mind that I would eventually write a book. It was just kind of in the back of my mind that someday I'll put all of this into a book. But the first idea was that it would be just a typical nonfiction kind of self-development book, because that's just the world I come from. That's mostly what I read. I don't really read a lot of fiction even. But I was thinking about this book, and it didn't really like light me up. It felt like something I kind of have to do because I have so much to share, but it really just feels like a big, overwhelming work project. you know. And then I can't remember exactly when or where, but I had this idea. Well, I read a few books that were fiction that really impacted me, and I kind of had this like, I wonder if I took my book idea and made it fiction. And it was just kind of this like, that would be kind of cool. That would make it sort of fun. And from that point forward, it was like planting a little seed in my mind that just started growing and sprouting slowly but surely. I'd put it out of my mind for weeks or months at a time because I was dealing with all these other things. And then it would just like creep its way back in, and I'd find myself like daydreaming about it and brainstorming, and then it like made me feel good to think about. It would keep me up at night sometimes, just thinking about like the potential of it and how I could craft a story. And then like the plot line started to come together a little bit, and then some characters started to come together, and this like silly idea for a book was now starting to feel very real, and started to, being the person I am, an entrepreneur my whole life, my instinct is to say I can create this. And that started getting louder and louder, and sure enough, I couldn't ignore it anymore. And it got to a point then where I started feeling like I was ignoring a higher calling by not taking action on it. And I had a million excuses, of course. Well, I don't know. There's still so many holes in the plot. I mean, there was a million holes in the plot. I barely knew the plot was very loose when I started. But there's a million holes in the plot. It's going to take a long time. How's it going to make money? I had all these reasons not to do it. But then I just kept coming back to, it doesn't matter. I'm being told to do it. I'm being given an assignment here, essentially. And by not accepting this assignment, I'm dishonoring myself and my creator, and dishonoring all the people that could potentially benefit from this book if I do write it. So I finally just said to my wife, we're gonna do this. And we were going through a major transition in our life, coming out of the back end of the pandemic. That whole previous business I had mentioned kind of got upended. So much was changing so fast, and we were just feeling really stuck here on Long Island. I decided to hand that business off to an employee as well. Again, I sold it, but it was very much a, this is yours now. Go ahead and run with it. I'm going to put my attention somewhere else. And we moved down to Costa Rica. We ended up being there for almost 2 years. We didn't know at the time how long we'd be there, about a year and a half. But as soon as I got there, I just opened up my laptop and started writing. And I had very, very little. I had the vision of Ocablaya. I had the two main characters. I had a few key points in mind that I knew I wanted to hit. And the rest I just kind of filled in as I went. I just kept trusting that when I get to the next part, I'll know what it's going to be about.
Yeah, no, that's beautiful. You gotta follow the muse,
Mm-hmm.
even though you may not know where she's taking you. You gotta go there. You gotta take that risk, and
Yeah.
jump off the bridge as an artist, And, I absolutely loved it, man. And as I was reading it halfway through it, I kept thinking, man, this needs to be a movie or a miniseries.
Miniseries, right? Yeah.
Because it's like I was just seeing it cinematically.
Yeah.
And so I hope that's in the works.
I think it is in the works. I think it's in the works up in the higher realms right now. It's not so much in the works here in the physical, but I think that.
But it's something you think you agree would be pretty.
I'd love to see it as a TV series. Yeah, I think it's too much for a movie just because of.
We'd have
to cut out all the dialogue and stuff, and that's the important part. I do see it as a mini series. It is released now, or being released on audio on Spotify as like an audio series. Two chapters a week are dripping out.
Well, that's a smart way of doing it.
Yeah, like an episode kind of format.
Yeah, that's really cool. Okay.
Yeah, and I did make a pretty cool cinematic trailer for it, and I kind of gave me the video. People are saying,
yeah, I saw it.
Yeah.
Yeah, Yeah, no, I liked it.
A
Absolutely.
lot of people are saying the same thing. So yeah, that's definitely what I'm open to for sure. I'm not in the position where I'm like trying to make that happen, but I am allowing that to happen as naturally as it can.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I feel that it's meant to happen, So somehow, however it does happen, it will happen. As life doesn't stop for us.
No, and it's I'm really glad that you read it. I appreciate that, and I'm glad that you felt it because what I was going to say quickly before was that all this time I'm saying to myself, I'm going to go write this book and I'm going to do this thing and I'm going to sell my business and do this. Obviously, that's like a very illogical thing to do, right? It didn't really add up on paper at all.
Absolutely.
There was I knew it was going to be several years and potentially not make any money ever, no less fast. Maybe someday, but like I knew it wasn't going to be the answer that we needed financially. Um, so I was doing other things in the meantime, but I was still just keeping the faith on this and just knowing that it's going to take a while and it's not going to really make any money and all these things, but that's okay. This is just, it has to get out there anyway. And once it's out there and it's alive, it's now a living entity, right? It has an energy, it can be spread, it can catch on, it can be shared. And then the magic can start to unfold. We can have connections like this. We can have connections with people who make TV series, whatever it could be. All of that can happen once it's alive. It can't happen when it's sitting in my head as a someday maybe kind of thing. So that was, this what I'm experiencing now in the increase in popularity is a blessing. I am so grateful for it because for so many years, for these last 3 years, I started writing over 3 years ago. There was I had no idea what was going to become of it at all.
Yeah. I our focus at with Follow the Plants and all the projects that I do with Sasha with wife, um, you know, most of them comes from plant inspired wisdom and teachings and all that. And as I was reading your book, I realized that so many of the things that you describe about being unique qualities of Okablaya and the way they live are actual things that I have been taught exactly from the plants, through the various diets, various trees and plants that I've dieted. We work in the Shipibo tradition.
Okay.
So ayahuasca is seen as kind of like the general doctor, but then ayahuasca has to do the diagnosing, and then she calls the different plants to come in to
Yes.
do the specialized work that
Right.
any given person might need. You know, and so, but it's I just in your book, all of these things from the way from nutrition, that's one of the things that I got from the plants right away. It's like, stop eating anything in a box, anything that's processed, anything that does not, if it doesn't grow from the ground, or if it wasn't just recently killed humanely, it doesn't belong in your kitchen. And I've lived this way for a very long time. We don't even keep sugar in the house. We have honey that we use to sweeten things, but we we don't have anything processed. And I feel so much better now in my 50s than I did in my 30s. Just simply, and I can attribute it to, I mean, many things, but definitely the nutrition portion of it. Not that I was eating like crap before, but I definitely was not eating as consciously as I am now.
Hmm.
Like, just being very careful
Yeah.
what I allow into this body. It's, if I see this body as a temple of God, a temple of God, then I have to treat it as such. And so I love that. And the one of the things that I really thought was unique and brave, was your take on or the Okablaya's take on the free market,
Hmm.
versus taxing the hell out of people and then
Hmm.
putting all these programs together. And I thought that was, I agree with it, man. Like, I actually, I love to see that, because in a lot of the plant medicine spiritual community, that's not always the, the dominating ideology. I think, I think a lot of people would go on the other side of that, even going towards like socialism is good and that's what we should pursue, which to me is scary. The fact that because the free market is just like nature. You know what I mean? It's decentralized, and there's transactions happening left and right in
Yes.
order for the whole thing to stay in balance.
Yeah.
You know, and so yes, you do need government to make sure that laws aren't broken and people aren't hurt, but nobody else but the people involved in the transaction should be involved in the transaction.
Right. Yeah, it's like it's a minimum effective dose, right, of
Yes,
government. And I'm
absolutely.
glad you brought that up, and I appreciate that because I agree. In a lot of the spiritual community, what happens is the way I see it is that so many of us we end up opening our hearts, like we mentioned earlier, which is a beautiful thing, and we start to look around the world and see these sort of injustices that are happening, and how some people have so much and some people have so little, and if we don't really understand some of these concepts of nature and freedom and exchange and interactions, if we don't understand those concepts, it can be easily deceived to think, well, that like you said, it should be different. It should be like everyone gets even, or like more socialist types of programs, because it feels like that's the more loving thing to do and more caring. But really, that's doing is putting other people in power to manipulate and control everything below it, and that's not obviously. It hasn't gotten us anywhere good so far, and it doesn't look like it would.
Agree, man. In fact, I've always believed that if you had to boil down like the decline of society or the decline of our Western society to one thing, I think it would have to be centralization.
Without a doubt.
Centralization of banking, centralization of industry, centralization of food and
Tech,
pharmaceuticals and all
yeah,
that, right? And that's it. Like that's the curse, right? Like that's the poison. So it
yes,
has to be, and this is what I love about blockchain technology and crypto is that it's there's no centralized controller of it. It's immutable. It's transparent. Anybody can go look at the ledger. It's
yes,
and it cannot be shut down because it lives like everywhere.
exactly,
Through different nodes, right, across. But
yeah,
that's one of the things that I got from the message from the plants, because it was through the plants that I was prompted to look into crypto, you know.
really,
And then when I started doing it, then my wife brought it up. I was like, okay, got it. We're doing this. And I was shown that like the decentralized ledger in the cryptography of the blockchain is like nature. It works exactly the same way as nature. It's completely decentralized and it's
yep,
transactional,
right,
and it just flows with
right.
what
And
needs
the
to happen.
transactions, both parties benefit from the transactions, right?
Absolutely, and you see
That's the
that in
key.
nature all the time. You see it between the trees and the fungi.
Yep,
There's a whole
right.
thing going on there.
And the plants and the animals, they eat
Yes,
off the trees and then they return it with their,
absolutely. Yeah,
exactly. So yeah, thanks for bringing that up. That was an important scene for me, and something that like I had spent a lot of time learning about, and I felt it was really important to emphasize that Okablaya is not this butterflies and rainbows utopia where there's all these million rules and everything is just like people manipulating everything to be just exactly perfect for everybody, because it's open and free, and like the only real fairness is freedom, fairness and freedom,
yeah,
and then we have to come back. Not unfortunately, but like actually, fortunately, it then requires us to trust one another again and learn how to act and maintain honor in our transactions and our relationships. And that's hard for people to imagine right now, because we just assume everybody's out looking for themselves, everyone's out to get you, you're going to get scammed, you're going to get ripped off, you're going to get whatever. but if we can, like, the whole point of this process, if we were able to shift back towards these free markets, would be to erase those stories and start to recreate stories of trust and honor as the default human response. The default human nature is to act in honor and to trust one another.
Absolutely.
And that's only been distorted because of these things, this system that we're sort of shoved into, and everyone's
Right.
pitted against each other.
Right. And there have been, traditions and cultures that have been trading, and trade goes back to the very, very beginning. I mean, that
Exactly.
that is a requirement to be able to survive and thrive. Even,
Yes.
you have to be able to work with other people because they might have something you need, but you have something that you can offer them, and there's this even exchange. It may not
Exactly.
be, money per se, but there has to be a value exchange.
Exactly.
And just energetically, I think that's the best. That's the flow of least resistance when everything
Without
is
a doubt.
kind of straight in that way.
Without
Uh,
a doubt.
yeah, I really love that, and I think it's an important one it's an important concept to put out there as an alternative to like you said, like living in a beautiful halfway house.
Yes.
Who the hell? What's that, right?
Right. That's a good way of putting it. I appreciate that.
But
Cool.
no, I think that's really great, and uh, I love the crazy billionaire character. I saw that coming. I knew that he was part of them.
Cool. Cool.
Right off the bat, I was like, "This got to be. This is the only way this works. Is if this guy's not. It's got to be involved."
Yeah, yeah.
So I was super happy when he pulls Sandra in for the meeting.
Yeah, that's funny. That character, um, it didn't come to me until I was almost done with the story, and then because then I went back and I wrote him into an earlier part just very briefly, so he was in there. But he didn't start to come to me until I was getting towards the end, and I wasn't really seeing how it was going to wrap up. Like, I had this concept in my mind, just so the listeners are aware. I don't want to like spoil the ending, but like this idea of having one of these billionaire tycoon type personalities like a Musk or a Bezos or somebody who was then kind of turned on to the light and kind of on this journey and had a similar sort of awakening process, a real awakening process. I wanted to create a character where we could explore what that could possibly do for humanity, right? And obviously, he only is in a very small part in this book, but I think most will figure out that he's
It's a
going to be
really
around.
great way to set up a continuation of the story
Yes,
for sure,
exactly. He's going to become a much more main character as the story goes on.
without a doubt. Yeah.
Yeah, and to me, I don't know exactly, but I'd like to spend time thinking about that. I'd like to sit with that notion. Like, what if someone with that type of money and resources really, truly opened themselves up to the light and devoted themselves to bringing science and spirit into one and bringing spirit back to our world in a way that we've never seen it before from these types of people. I don't want to like label them too much, but you know what I'm saying. So just for me to spend some time thinking about that and brainstorming, creating a character and a storyline around it is going to be fun. Hopefully, give other people out there in that position some ideas.
Absolutely. Yeah. Don't doubt that it won't happen. It's
No, I don't.
it's gonna be.
Maybe it'll be me someday. Well,
Yeah. There you go.
there we go.
So from your lips to God's ears, my friend.
Yes, right.
Absolutely. May it be that way. But yeah, I think that's a really important part because the thing is we all uh, have to do our part. And like I love what I love too is that there's this project. Is it Delphinus? Is that the
Delphinius. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Delphinius? Yeah, okay.
Yep.
So I love this project because it's like creating these in like little agents of change, and then just kind of putting them in different parts of the world, right? And kind
Yeah,
of like
yeah.
infecting, if you will, with some of this higher vibration. and that's and therefore in training the rest of the society eventually to bring them up to the new vibration
Yes.
versus having our energy brought down by the environment, right?
Yes.
And so, but it's like a critical mass. In other words, it doesn't have to be everybody. It has to be just enough of a very small percentage, but will cause that change. And that's
Yes.
like the 100 monkey theory, that
Yes.
whole thing.
Exactly.
Like that's a thing, like that's real. And so
Right.
when that happens, and it is happening, thanks to plant medicine and a lot of this new programming that is available, primarily, a lot of it on X. Like there's a lot of good information on plant medicines that are, and not so much anymore, but especially during the pandemic, I found that, things about that had to do with healing that were not involved or were not by the big pharma as they were being blocked and banned, and especially during the COVID years,
Yeah.
but it's nice to see that. And but yeah, man, I absolutely love your book, man. And I
Thank you.
think I expect that you're probably going to have a lot of people asking you what's happening next,
Yes. Well,
and
I'm getting that already, which is a good sign. Um, I was going to say one thing about the last point you made, actually, because it was really important for me while writing to I wanted to make sure it was very clear that the point, kind of the underlying theme of the whole story, that these are regular people who live regular lives, who are going through this transformation, and they're going to go home and just go back to living, being regular people living regular lives, and that's actually all what we need to do to change. Is that the power of one person just starting to think and speak and act in their highest alignment is going to ripple into so many different directions. And
absolutely,
so one person doing it, 10 people doing it, 1,000, 10,000, 100,000. But that's all we can do as people, as individuals. All we can do is work on our own personal transformation and development. I mean, we can do other things as well, but like that is the first and foremost. That's in our control right now, all the time, and that's going to lead us into these higher and higher vibrational states that and connect us with other people on the same path. So then we can come together and do these sort of bigger things as a team. But the key to all of this is our own personal transformation. That's the underlying root.
that's absolutely it. Like Michael Jackson said, I'm looking at the man in the mirror.
Yep. Yep. Perfect.
But that's the way it's done. Yeah, no, this is really beautiful, and your characters are so well defined. Uh, Alacoa, is it? Yeah, is it Alacoa? Yeah, I love that character, and I get a feeling that there was something going on between Alacoa and the girl that Garrett thought had hit on him. Maybe I'm wrong, but I, I got the sense that there's something there.
Yeah. Maybe. We'll have
You
to wait
know,
and see.
it
Yep.
it definitely like brought it up in my mind. I was like, there's something there. Let's. I hope to see what's happening there. So,
Yeah. Yeah. It's
uh,
funny. It's funny too. On a quick note, a lot of women who I've talked to have read the story. Um, the whole time they were thinking, automatically assuming, oh, Garrett and Sandra are going to meet each other and fall in love, like that there's going to be like this romantic thing. And like maybe they will, maybe they won't. But a few of them were like, that the whole time they thought that was going to happen in this book, just because it's like, that's just the kind of the cliche storyline.
yeah, yeah, yeah. I
And
I did not think that at all, but
good, yeah.
but I did.
Because to me, I don't like cliche. There's one thing I don't like is cliche,
Yeah,
right?
no, no,
So
not at all. No, I would have thought it was cliche if you had done that,
yeah, I think so too. So
because they're too similar. Like to find somebody right for each of them, it takes like going kind of the
yes,
opposite
yeah,
energy to complement. You know what I mean?
yeah.
So
Exactly.
it wouldn't work.
It was never the
It
intention.
wouldn't work anyway. So yeah, no, thank you for not forcing that. Ah,
Yeah.
no, but very well defined, and I like I tell you, man, like I had the vision of who these people were so clearly based on your writing, and that's credit to you.
Thank you.
I could see them all as like full, beautiful characters that were not two-dimensional, who were flawed,
Mm,
who had their fears and anxieties about things, but somehow, because of the fact that they live from the heart, they are able to navigate these things in a much better way than
yes.
most people, who do not live from the heart.
Right.
Um,
Thank you.
but really, really fantastic. And I wanted to ask you. I read, and I don't know, maybe it's there's a lot of fake news out there, but I read somewhere that you live in some kind of self-sustaining situation for 2 years in some community.
Yeah. So when we were in Costa Rica, we
Okay.
lived in an eco village. It was defined. I think they defined it as like an intentional community. And it was kind of like a hybrid. We weren't really sure what to expect until we got there. I mean, we had some information, obviously, but it was a little vague. But it was kind of like a nice, real stepping stone between this modern society that we're in now and where I want to go next and where a lot of people want to go next. It was a really, really big step in the right direction. There was their own community garden, and which had like weekly deliveries of all the vegetables. There was a school that was really aligned with just play-based learning and outdoor, movement and things like this. And then there was about 40 houses in the community. We had potluck dinners. We had offerings and events at the yogashala almost every day, group meditations, hikes, all different sorts of like classes and workshops, because so many people that live there were just really just very knowledgeable people in all different sort of natural living techniques and things. And we loved it. It was a really, really amazing experience. We didn't end up staying. Well, we didn't end up staying mostly because we missed our family back home. That was kind of the main thing. Um, but we found out we were having our third child. Our lease was up. I was actually working as part of the village. They were going through this big expansion. They were going from one little village of 40 homes to 7 villages next to each other. So it was like a really, really big expansion. And I was working as part of it for a while. And it's a really amazing project, but ultimately I saw that it wasn't going to be the right place for me long term. And probably not going to be the right place for us to like sink our roots and live in forever. We're hoping to be able to spend some time there this winter again, go back and spend the winter there. But yeah, it did though. Before we even got there, we were really leaning towards this idea of exploring community living and what it would mean to live in that kind of way. And we learned a ton. We had a million things about it that we loved, and some things about it that we didn't love, that if it was up to me, maybe would have been a little bit different. And that's really helped inspire me. And through this story, I'm actually working. It's just very early stages. I don't have land or funding yet, but I am working on a concept model for a new type of village based on Ocablaya, based on a lot of the principles in the story. Not exactly like Ocablaya, but taking these sort of principles of people first and philosophy and building a village around that everyone can be in the same, not just like-minded, but shared values and shared belief
Yeah,
systems.
that's Ocablo, isn't it?
Ocablo, yeah, Ocablo. That's the name. But I'm referring to it as modern tribal village. So modern, mostly modern-ish living. Of course, we're not really going back to living in huts. I don't think that that's going to be to happen unless we have to. Which
Right.
I don't really,
Hopefully, it won't
hopefully
come to that.
hopefully won't come to that. So we're not. I'm not expecting people to abandon all these technological advances that we've made, but the tribal living side of it, the way we interact, the way we come together. And to me, village, that tribal village is a step deeper than just community. Community is very nice. It's great. It's a beautiful start. Village is about, this is who we are. It's almost a redefining who we are as a people, and bringing the children into the processes of all of it. So like the village can operate. It needs everyone to succeed. that everyone has a role, even if it's small. Everybody has some kind of role in the village in maintaining its success and survival. Maybe not survival like we're going to die, but survival of the project and of the plan. So everyone has a role. Everyone knows the vision. Everyone is involved in the, there's decision making guidelines and protocols and conflict resolution protocols that everyone knows that we're all here for the same reasons, going for with the same vision in mind, and creating a school in which the kids understand what it means to be a part of that village and what the human characteristics that we all carry as being part of this project, that they learn that early on and they learn how to operate so they are able to continue like in the past, that the bloodlines would carry on the village and these things. So even though it might have a modern twist, it's still those same principles.
Yeah, no, I love that. I'm curious, what your general thoughts on AI might be, and also if you think that there's any room for AI in this like vision of Okapu that you're sharing with me, and would it be limited and how much? And
Yeah.
I'd love to hear about that.
So I'm still, the jury's kind of out for me a little bit on AI. Like I'm not on one side or the other of the fence of like obviously, I think it's probably obvious that think I think we overuse it, and I think there's the potential for overuse, and I think that this sort of technocratic surveillance state, AI driven data, everything tracked, everything data stored, like is not a good thing, right? And that's what a lot of people in the techno elite are working towards. Obviously, I don't think that that's the best interest of humanity, but I don't think that it's just all bad, never use it. There's no place for it either. Same thing with like when the internet first came, right? There's the internet being used as a tool for things like this and for so much good. And then there's the internet in your pocket 24 hours a day, distracting you from all the things in your life that you have to do, right? To say to have to be all in or all out on the internet, I don't think would be a fair decision to have to make. And I don't think it's that for AI either. If I had to summarize where I'm at now, I think minimum effective dose, of course, of the things that would allow for streamlined efficiency and allow for us humans to spend more time being humans and doing less of the mundane tasks that are the most of us that eat up so much of our life and our time and interfere with our ability to connect with ourselves and our families and our communities.
Yeah.
So
absolutely.
I can't say for sure exactly what that looks like, but I mean, AI is like pretty much brand new, just like the internet in 2002 or whatever. Nobody knew what it was going to look like now,
or what opportunities it would create.
Exactly. I think AI, a lot of people are speculating and can make predictions, but it's really so new of how it's going to shake out. I think it's pretty common that a lot of people are. I saw a video clip recently of, I forget who it was. I don't know if it's the CEO of Google or somebody high in Google giving a speech at a college graduation. He was giving the commencement speech, and basically his whole speech was about how no matter where you're going in life, AI will help you get there. It was like a big AI pitch, basically.
Yeah.
And they all booed him. They people were booing him.
I gotta see that.
Yeah, it's really funny. And I do think that shows people aren't looking to just give up everything to these machines and just be like, it's going to be an AI world. Sorry, sorry, I'm not sorry kind of thing.
Yeah.
I think most people are not down for that. I think we can see the potential benefits and see the potential damage that it can do. So, I mean, that's kind of where I'm at the moment. We'll see as time goes on. I only use it for artwork right now. I use it for art that I can't make myself.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. That's a fair use of it, I think.
I don't write.
I think I remember watching recently an interview with Elon Musk where he's talking about the way he sees AI affecting the future of humanity. And his perspective is actually a very optimistic one. He seems to think that AI is going to basically bring production costs down to practically nothing, where everything is going to be super cheap and
Yes.
available and abundant because of AI and robotics and all of that, right? So I don't doubt that. So basically, what he's saying is that there's going to be universal high income for everybody.
Yeah.
Like there's going to be enough money and things will be cheap enough that with the money that you get, you're going to be able to afford and more than afford, and you won't be giving. In other words, it won't be jobs anymore. Then, as in the 9 to 5
Right.
experience, right?
There won't be jobs in a good way. Like we won't need.
Exactly. You're
Yeah.
correct. There
That's
won't be
yeah.
jobs in a good way. And when I heard that, I thought, wow, I hope this guy's right because that sounds really beautiful. If that were actually to happen. Then my next thought was like, okay, how would people handle not having jobs anymore? And it got me thinking, like, even with my own struggles to free myself from identity, uh, how tough it would. That's why it has to happen in stages, because I think it would be too much. I think you'd have suicides.
Probably people wouldn't know what to do with
They
themselves.
would not know what to do, and in particular, men.
I think so.
We define ourselves by what we do,
Yeah,
by the work that we do.
I agree.
And when I've seen plenty of men, and during the pandemic, bro, when my business went to crap, and all of a sudden, all my clients were just gone. Like it stopped cold. My production company was just, I had never experienced that before. I experienced slowdowns,
Yeah,
but I've never experienced just everything being just taken away and pulled out. And man, even though I had already dealt with, freeing myself from other things that I had identified myself as throughout different parts of my life, that was the one that I guess still had to be challenged. And that was the perfect opportunity for me to challenge that one, because I really understood why men who lose their jobs after 30, 40 years commit suicide. Because, it's like that's where our self worth comes from. And so if we're not able to do that, we we consider ourselves useless and
hmm
worthless.
hmm
So it's important that as these things are happening and developing in this way, that we also tend to the inside, with whatever it's meditation or through plant medicine or shamanic work, but to really get in touch with that and letting go of those things so that to create this opening for what is possible,
yes,
because
yes,
we cannot create the new from the old, so we have to start kind of shifting the consciousness. It's like we have to start being the imaginal cells in the caterpillar that
yes.
that dies and starts to rot, and then these imaginal cells out of nowhere come out and they start building new little parts in every different, all these different places in the dead caterpillar, and from that the butterfly is created.
Right, right.
And I really feel like that's what we're going through right now.
I think so too. Yeah,
It feels that way. So
yeah,
I really appreciate, um, always finding other people like yourself and your work and getting acquainted uh, with your book. Like it's very refreshing and it's very encouraging because, there's so many out there in the world of us who have been touched by the plants and spirit, and
yes,
have our lives been transformed. And then through our work, we hope to be able to somehow um, present this experience without preaching about it or trying to convince anybody about it, just to bring awareness to,
yes.
and so it's nice, man. I really feel like we're even though a lot of people seem to think the world is falling apart, I don't. I actually think we're like just on the right track, and that what we're going to see happening in the future is just beautiful.
I agree. I agree. It's more like it's falling together. It's kind
Yeah,
of really falling apart, but it's really falling back together.
absolutely. I like
And
that.
it may get there could be some more rocky times along the way for sure. But
No doubt.
I think
No
it's still
doubt.
just it's all necessary as part
Absolutely.
of the
Yeah. Yeah.
the
Yeah.
evolution. You know,
Yeah.
it's not always pretty. It's
I've
death
come
and
to understand that every setback it is really an opportunity for
yeah.
growth. You know,
Yeah, death. It's a death of something old and a birth of something new. And death and birth obviously are not always pretty, right? Like, but they're beautiful, sacred parts of the process.
absolutely. Yeah, and that's another one of the things that the little nuggets that the medicine gave me. You know, and she was explaining to me how fear of death is fear of life.
Mm,
You know, and you can't truly live freely until you free yourself of that fear of death.
yeah, I love that.
You know, and it's so true, man. And I remember the first time I came back from Peru, I honestly, brother, I've never felt that free in my life. Like I literally felt like, okay, if I die now, I'm not afraid. I am so okay with whenever the time comes. And I had never experienced that. You know, there's always this kind of like fear that just kind of bubbling, you know, and it really always comes down to fear of death, you know, fear of disappearing, fear of have been meaningless.
Mm-hmm.
You know,
Mm-hmm.
that's just comes from not really knowing who you are and what, you know, divine spark flows through you
Mm,
in the same way that the divine spark flows through everything,
right.
you know, and just the divine. And so, um, but you know, that's the work that, you know, that I do. I try to kind of like convey that. And I've been doing documentaries now for about 12 years. And this is actually the last year that I'm working on documentaries because I'm going to be going back to, I need to get back to narrative filmmaking, you know, storytelling. That's where my roots are. But somehow, you know, and it was actually the plants that asked me to do my documentary. It was commissioned, just like your book, you know. And
Okay.
so it was like, okay, I've been commissioned this work, and so I have to make this
Right.
happen. And so worked on that movie for 6 years, and
Wow.
finally got it out. And you know, I'm really happy with where it's gone, and the feedback I get lets me know that what we intended for the movie is happening. And like
Yeah, it's so good. It's
that's
such a well done piece.
yeah, no, thank you very much, man. And you know that took a big leap of faith, and that was also, you know, mostly self financed.
Yeah.
And so I had to not only, you know, put my mouth on it, I had to put my money where my mouth is, you know,
Mm-hmm.
because I just um, didn't have you know, financing coming from the outside. But it was somehow it all miraculously came together, and in the same way that you described, you know, like I met my wife in the middle of of doing an ayahuasca inspired 9 month celibacy diet. During that period of time, that's when I first connected with Sasha, and and um, and then just all these other things, and then we eventually connected with Bani, the one who I told you was the original one, who told me about ayahuasca many years before. And so like all these people and opportunities started just showing up on their own. Like I had no more control of the project.
Right.
It's literally just happening. And I was like, okay, all right. Okay,
Yep.
that sounds good too. All right, take that, you know.
Yep. Yep.
But it was like but it required so much trust.
Mm,
And but it also, you know, it required being at peace with not knowing what's next. And I
hmm
felt like that was probably the biggest challenge for me. Like really trusting,
Yes.
you know.
That's tricky. That's a practice for sure. At peace without knowing what's next. Yeah, I'm writing that down because I really want to take that with me. Because yeah, I have a lot of excitement around what's to come regarding the story and things, but it's also as much uncertainty, right? Uncertainty is like it comes with there's fear of uncertainty, but there's also excitement around uncertainty. But
Yeah, and that's the balance, you know, and the excitement and curiosity, you know,
yes.
like to bring back curiosity, I think is key, you know, because it's like you can't go from fear to bliss without first at least getting to curiosity. You
hmm
can't, you know, to be able to just get out of the fear by just being curious. Maybe there's something a little better than business,
Yes. Right.
and moving towards that. Um, but how are we on time? And I know you got to get some.
Yeah, I would say if we could probably start landing the plane at this point, it would be good. Maybe
Okay, all
in
right,
the
man.
next
No,
10
it's been
minutes.
amazing. I could keep talking to you for another 2 hours.
Yeah, no major rush, but yeah, I think within the next 10 minutes or so would be good.
Yeah, and so let me see. I wrote down some questions that I thought I might ask you. I haven't had to look at this yet, but okay. We covered a lot of this stuff that I was going to ask you about. So but what I really would love to know is so this idea of vocabulary. Um, envision 10 years down the road. What does it look like in the best possible scenario?
Yeah. So, like I was mentioning before, the idea is to have a concept model. So, what I mean by that is it's not necessarily just a goal to find one piece of land that 30 or 40 families can live on and figure out a way to make it work just for us. Like, there's nothing wrong with that. That's what most village projects are. My idea is to create something, a model that can be replicated and scaled and adopted based on its success. So it would probably start with one, but the idea would be that we're going to figure out, we're going to troubleshoot and work through all the problems so someone else can adopt this model. Other people can adopt this model based on what we're showing is possible here. So that's the one that's one thing. It's figuring out how it can be sustainable, like ecologically sustainable, um, economically sustainable. Like it has an economic model that works financially. It's affordable, but it also supports the things that need to be done. And then it's also like evolutionarily sustainable, meaning like as the world continues to change with AI and these things, it's not some kind of model that will be outdated in a few years, right? It's something that can stand the test of time. So yeah, to me, within what'd you say, 10 years? So within 10 years, I'd like to say that there's the first village up and running, and others not too far behind, right? So if we had the first village at least started within 3 to 5 years, like broken ground, let's say. And I imagine there to be somewhere between 30 to 50 families per village in a single village. And what is most important to me is, like I said before, is that the village is operates. I almost hesitate to use this word depending on how people react to it, but it almost operates like a startup company, a business. Meaning it's not just about the finances, but it's about a startup in a way where everybody knows the goal, everybody has a role, everybody's clear on what their role is and who their team is and whatnot. And that the success and survival of the village relies on everybody being able to execute their role. Now, again, modern village, modern tribal village, people are still going to have their regular jobs and their regular things, but 40 to 50 families could potentially be 200 people or more. Having the roles and responsibilities divvied up among 200 people around the village can significantly reduce the cost of what it takes to live there, and the efficiency, and allow it to survive. And then, like I mentioned earlier, the school is in there, not only fostering these young minds and hearts into what they are, who and what they are inside, but those kids are learning all about what makes the village operate and how it runs and how it succeeds, and how they'll all the different areas and departments of they'll learn all those things throughout school. They'll know how the farm is run and how the school is run and how the maintenance is done and how the healing center operates. They'll learn all of that as part of their school and be able to continue it as the generations that come after. It's a multi-generational perspective, not just me and my kids. It's the idea would be the land that you own, the land that you buy, or however we structure it, is designed to be in your family for forever, really. To be able to continue to pass down from generation to generation, and that's something that's very different than we experience now in our culture. Obviously, my family and my wife's family, we're lucky enough. They're two big families that all live within a 20-25 minute radius of here. That's pretty uncommon how close we are, but we're still not living together, right? Like, I still don't really even barely know my actual neighbors. But the idea of shared land and shared community space and shared responsibilities for multiple generations, now you're recreating a new bloodline, really, right? You're recreating a new type of person, a way of being, and doing that in alignment with our core values and philosophies, and doing that with honor is going to be a big part of the conversation of, leading the example of what this new earth is going to look like.
Oh man, I hope to get the invite because
Of course.
might join you for that experience.
Yeah, I'll say something to you real quick, but I want the audience to hear it as well. In the back of the book, there's a little QR code.
Yes.
Right. So if you scan that and join in, you'll just be in our group chat. It's nothing crazy. It won't bother you. But I post updates in there. We do about once a month. We do a call where we're talking about all these things.
That's cool.
It's for people to stay connected. It's to hear about these projects, what's going on the side. We may be scheduling a retreat for the fall, stuff like that. So I say that for the audience as well. If you do decide to buy the book, definitely scan that in the back. Just so you're in the know, you're in the loop, you're on
Absolutely.
the loop.
And for everybody listening, where can they find the book?
Yeah, so the book is available at theprimordialcode.com, and it's also on Amazon. If you're out of the United States, use Amazon. If you're in the United States, it's best to use our website. It's just helpful for us. I'll ship it out to you personally. And I'll actually give a very, very short synopsis because we didn't really I'm realizing now we didn't actually say exactly what the book is about.
No, please go ahead. Yeah.
So the book takes place in a land called Okoblaya, as Luis has said a few times. And the Okoblaya, the land of Okoblaya is a land of freedom and harmony. And they live in alignment with the universal laws of nature. And they govern themselves by that all-knowing, all-encompassing universal wisdom that lives within all of us, that they call the Primordial Code. And the Primordial Code is kind of, how they operate by this code. And they want to help the Western world, who's obviously struggling. So they have this underground program where they bring just regular everyday people over to Okoblaya. And it's like a secret program, and they kind of take them through an initiation sort of process to show them what Okoblaya is all about, how they're able to do the things they're able to do, and why they're successful and why we're not. So there's a lot of hard contrast between the two worlds, and a lot of conversation around what we've gotten wrong and why. And then the characters end up going through their own radical transformation, and are ultimately to have to decide whether or not they want to commit themselves to the calling of the code and basically becoming a spiritual warrior, more or less. So that's obviously the big decision at the end. And yeah, that's kind of the synopsis.
Yeah, it's a fantastic book. And I was not kidding when I said that it's become one of my favorites.
That's so good to hear. And it's also, I did just release it on audio. So Spotify, Apple, YouTube, 2 chapters a week are dripping out for the next 7 weeks. And then it'll all be up there for streaming for free. So if you prefer audio, you can go there, or at least start there and see if you like it before you buy the book.
Yeah, awesome. Is that one narrator, or do you have different?
I do the male voice, and I actually have someone doing the female voice as well.
Okay, good,
She's
good.
very, very good. She makes me
Okay.
look bad, kind of, but that's okay.
No, I bet not. But I'm gonna listen because
Yeah, yeah. Give it
I'm
a listen.
curious
It's
about
great.
it. So thank you so much, bro. I've really really enjoyed this conversation. I honestly could keep talking to you for another couple hours. Maybe we'll have to do this again because I feel like there's a lot of stuff that we haven't covered. But it's been really amazing, and wishing you well on all of your endeavors, brother.
Thank you so much. I think I'd be very open to having another conversation and doing this again. And I look forward to seeing you in our group chat. And
Either.
people will know because I've recommended your documentary so many times. There's going to be some people who definitely know, like, recognize your name, or when I remind them of who you are. So that's pretty cool too.
Well, that's awesome, man. Thank you, and thank you so much. So happy that you love it and that you're recommending it. Um, so fantastic, man. Sending
Thank
you a
you.
big hug, my friend, and
You
until
too.
next.
Thank you.